Well, here we are at week 11. It is Wednesday morning and I'm just going to pot up some of these purple basils that I've had sitting around. They're a really fantastic colour, aren't they? Look at that. Gorgeous. Not fantastic germination, you can see there's a few gaps. But what is here I'm going to pot up into these larger pots and they should grow away quite happily. I'll probably put half of them into the Polytunnel where all the other basil is doing so well, and I'll keep half of them at home and maybe have a bit of a compare. I'm going to put probably 3 of these to a pot. It allows them enough space to kind of grow into quite big plants. You can see there's been a bit of staggered germination here, and there's a few just starting to come through now, and there's one I've just caught there. I'll put him back in. I'm just going to leave this back on the window ledge and see if they come up, and then I'll pop them up when they're a bit bigger. So this morning's main job has been to build this carrot root fly cage from the Enviromesh that we had left over. I didn't film it because I was kind of making it up as I go along, but it's worked out okay.
Right.
Mum's happy. And that's it on the carrots. We did have the long Enviromesh cage over the whole of this because we've got the leeks at this end, and the Enviromesh protects them from the allium leaf miner as well. But I'm going to be moving those leeks into the other allium bed. So I guess you remember from last week the hideousness of all the black fly that we've got this year. Seems to be pretty universal. Everyone's having a really bad time with it. But this is just so thick. So thick. And what we're going to try is something called neem oil. So how you use neem oil is you have to mix it up in water. And it being an oil, obviously, you need soap to emulsify it so that it goes through the water. I'm not measuring this out, but I sort of know how much to use. I've done quite a lot of looking online, and I will put the links to the resources that I've looked at underneath. So to emulsify it in the water, you need soap. I've got this unscented plain soap. I did have a go using fairy liquid, but you needed so much of it, and this you needed hardly any, so I'm feeling a bit better about doing this one. So you just want to put a bit of soap in. You want as little soap as possible, so put the smallest amount in first, give it a shake, and if it starts resurfacing under the foam immediately, then you need a little bit more, and go from there. So neem oil comes from a tree that's found mainly in India. You can apply it to plants in 2 ways, as a foliar spray or as a soil drench, and it works in a systemic fashion, i.e. it goes inside the plant and it discourages leaf chewing insects from eating your plants. So that's aphids, whitefly, caterpillars, etc. What it doesn't do is harm the animals or the insects that are not chewing the leaves. So that's bees, ladybirds, and fish, birds, all of those are unaffected by it. It is just the ones which are directly chewing the leaves. So I am, in general, not a fan of spraying anything on my plants, but black fly are so bad this year, we're just going to give it a go. So I'm going to put it in this sprayer, and we're going to try it as a foliar spray to begin with on the beans, and I will report back next week what's happened to them. As I say, the resources that I've looked into and where I bought the neem oil from, I will put the links in the blurb below. Well, it's a bit of a cold and blustery and wet Friday morning here in London. I'm going to be doing some sowing this morning, not heading out to the plot. As you saw in the last video, we're having quite a lot of problems with the black fly. So what I'm going to do is try and recreate something that I did accidentally last year with the beans. So we had a bit of a rogue late frost last year, and so the beans were really badly checked, particularly the French beans. So they were kind of put back loads, and they did start growing again from the bottom, and I sort of had faith that they were going to catch up, and then they had a bit of a wobble about now, and they really didn't look like they were going to do anything. So I did a mad dash replanting of all the French beans in a kind of a ditch attempt to save the French bean season, which was odd. So it's about like mid-June, and which is sort of normally too late to be sowing your beans really, or it is for this area. So I did that, and eventually the beans that I had already in the ground just kind of got over it, and they picked up and they were brilliant. But then I had this whole other set of beans, so I just planted these like interspaced with the French beans that I already had growing up, and it was an absolute raging success, because the first lot of beans did their thing and sort of started tiring out kind of end of the summer, and there was a whole fresh load coming up behind them that just carried on. So we were picking beans right up until the frost basically last year, which was quite extraordinary, and it worked brilliantly. And I'm not sure if it was the variety, because the French bean that I normally grow is this one, which is just the Violetta, like purple French bean. It's an absolutely outstanding bean. You can pick it really young and it's tender and perfect, but you can also pick it when it's a bit gnarly and old and it's not stringy, which is really fantastic, because you're always going to miss some of them. And also the beans inside don't go really tough. So basically you've got a bit more leeway with them than you do most of the beans. So this is the one that I normally do. And last year I'd sown all of these and didn't have any left. So I went racing around trying to find some, and came up with one that looked vaguely similar called Blauhild, or Blauhilde. And this is the one that extended the season massively. I wasn't as keen on this bean as I am on this one. They were quite a different shape. So the Violetta is a really like cylindrical bean. It's really, really rounded. And Blauhild was much flatter. It didn't have as much flavour, and also if you left it on there too long, they went really, really woody and you just couldn't eat them. So I'm going to do a bit of a test. I'm going to re-sow some of these like I did last year, but I'm also going to do a second wave of the Violetta seams. I have the seed, and just plant them in between and see if we can get that same carry on that we did last year, because that was excellent. We also got to freeze some as well, which was really nice. We've only just finished eating them from last year, so and that's what you want really. I mean, I find it quite interesting being somebody who grows their own food all the time. I mean, I'm in no way self-sufficient. I'd love to be, but I'm not there yet. But it's things like asparagus, for example. Take that, is that I eat asparagus basically every day for 6 weeks of the year, and then I don't have it again until the next time it comes round. Like I wouldn't think to go and buy it in the shops out of season, even though you walk around a supermarket and it's there 365 days of the year. It just sort of doesn't sit well in my head. And I really like that. Like you look forward to that asparagus so much when you get that first one, and it's just heaven. And I think that, you know, people really do miss out on that. Having said that, if you can kind of get quite proficient at storing food, I mean, that's what obviously they used to do with preserves and all that kind of stuff and pickling. But I mean, now we've got freezers and that sort of thing, and some things freeze fantastically well. The French beans freeze brilliantly. Never have much luck freezing runner beans. I've tried every method that I've been told about. I've tried, you know, slicing them up, blanching them, not blanching them, leaving them whole. Yeah, basically I don't like the texture when they've been defrosted. They're like mush and I don't like it. So that's one we don't hold on to. But French beans are really good in the freezer. Obviously peas are good in the freezer, but we never have enough to freeze. So anyway, what I'm doing is sowing Violetta, Blauhilde. I'm going to sow some more tall telephone peas because I've got the seed, and it says on here that you can sow them to late May. Well, we've got a really extended season in London, so I might get a late crop of peas, who knows. We're going to have a bit of space clearing soon as we clear out last year's chard and the potatoes are dug out, so we're going to have a bit more space, so I'm going to throw some more of those in. So, because they're legumes, they're back in the root trainers. So this is the Violetta I'm putting in first. I'm just going to do 8 of them, and then I'm going to do 8 of the Blauhilde and 8 tall telephone. They've been really fantastic, those tall telephone peas this year actually. I'm definitely going to be growing them again. Right, what else was I going to sow? Got to put some pak choy in, but I'm going to direct sow that straight into the ground because it seems to work 100 times better that way and doesn't bolt. But I do need to sow some more kohlrabi. Kohlrabi's been amazing this year. Oh, look at that. It's an absolute beauty. They're absolutely gorgeous. This one is destined to be, it's a bit floppy now because I picked it yesterday, but this one is destined to be a coleslaw this afternoon. We've got a load of fresh sourdough that I baked this morning, so that's going to be really good with that for lunch. Even though it is a bit rainy, it's not really salad lunch time, but never mind. Shut up, Annie. No shush, darling. I am going to sow some more coriander. I know I said I'm no good at it, but you know, perseverance maybe might win the race. And I'm also going to sow some more garlic chives. I mean, remember I said these were taking absolutely ages to come up? Where's my pot of them? Here. Look at this. Like 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks now. Can you see the one garlic chive I've got in there? I'm not impressed with that, to be honest. So I'm going to sow some more and see what happens. First one will be the coriander. Just gonna, you know what I mean. And next up, I'll do garlic chives. I've got 2 garlic chive plants growing up at the allotment that I bought, you know, as potted plants about 2 years ago. They're really fantastic. I'm a huge fan of them. They don't taste anything like chives. They're a very different looking plant, and really what I should be doing is splitting them, and I'm going to. But what I'm hoping is I'm going to get a load more plants from these, and I will be able to edge the very front of the large asparagus bed with them, just like straight along that front. So I'm going to need about 15 or so of them, and the ones I've got I'll be able to split into maybe 4 each, so that's 8, but I still need some, and that one that's in that pot isn't going to help me much. So I'll put some on there. And then it's kohlrabi time. I want quite a lot of these. I want to have, so it's 8 in a row. I'm going to want 16. I want at least 8, and then I'll sow again. So I'm going to do 8, and then I'm sowing some for somebody else as well, and they'll probably want 8 too. So I guess just 2 rows of 8 should sort me out. This is a variety that's called Azure, and it's the purple one, like the one we've got behind us. You can get a really good set of green varieties of kohlrabi, which I might try next year, but this year we've only got this one, and that's quite enough. Right, well that's my bit of morning seed sowing done. I'll just write that one on there. But quick update on the sweet potatoes. Have a look how much root we've got in there now. So huge thanks. I got quite a lot of advice when I was doing it the other week. So I've done a bit of reading on the resources that were passed my way, and I think I'm ready to pot them up. So that's probably going to be maybe a job. I'm going to Kew Gardens this afternoon, so I won't be doing it today. Maybe tomorrow. Not much movement on the one that is actually still in the pot though, but you know, there's still time. Maybe. I'm going to take these outside. I'm not even going to bother watering them. I'm just going to leave them on the lawn because it's raining, and that will do them just fine. There's beautiful sunshine this morning. It's looking a tad grey up there. Hopefully it holds off while I put these plants in. I'm planting out the celery and celeriac plants today. These are the ones I sowed at home and I potted up on a vlog a couple of weeks ago. They're now a good size. I'm planting the 2 rows quite far apart because I'm going to use the space between them to grow a quick crop. Possibly some Madania spinach, or I might put in some more radishes. Good afternoon. It's a magnificent day up here today, and last night was the summer solstice, so we are kind of at longest day point at the moment, which is really lovely in some sense. Bit alarming in another, thinking that the days are going to start getting shorter already, but it alarms me every single year and I cope, so I'm sure it'll be alright. What am I doing today? Bit of feeding and sort of tomato care. Mainly for the outdoor tomatoes actually, because I've been pruning up the ones in the polytunnel. They're looking pretty snaz. I'll give you a bit of a whiz round in there in a mo. But the ones that I've got outside, which are the same varieties, just need a bit of kind of picking over. They need a feed and they need tying up to their canes because they've all started to sort of go like this. Yeah, so that's what's on my cards for today. I've run out of comfrey feed. I've got my last batch is finished, and the new batch that you saw me making the other day, although it's only a tiny little batch, isn't going to be ready for another couple of weeks. Well, probably another week. So I'm using a well-known brand of tomato feed today. Over a season I like to feed them with sort of a range of different things because it gives them just a bit more breadth. You know, one thing is going to have something slightly different in than another, and the really kind of the basic whacking great NPK feeds like kind of miss on some of the smaller stuff. So don't normally use it, but we've always got a bottle in the I was going to say in the fridge there. We do always have a bottle in the fridge, but not of tomato feed. We do normally have one in the shed, just in case, as a bit of backup, and so that's what I'm going to be using today. So I'm just going to take you to the polytunnel, but how lovely is this sunflower? It's a great colour, and then I've got another one coming here. I love these heads, they're like cactus. Okay, so come and have a look in the polytunnel. Everything is growing so fast. These tomatoes are at my head height now. And there's just masses and masses of tomatoes on them. They look great. I'm really, really pleased. So we've got 17 different varieties in here. Each one is basically an individual. You can see how many. And this one is way above head height. It's going to touch the ceiling. I'm going to have to nip it off at the top, I think. But that was the one that looked like an octopus last week, if you remember. And we have the basil is still doing fantastically. I've been picking so much of it and it's still going like crazy. We have in here the first pepper flowers. This is a black jalapeno. Pretty excited about that. And there's another one over there. You can see how many tomatoes are in the background, and the Thai basil is still going strong. It smells amazing. Yeah, so basically that's what we've got going on in the polytunnel. Everything's looking good, and these are the same tomatoes that were the same size and planted out almost at the same time. You can see they're nowhere near as big, but they're outside and they're having rather a harder life than the ones in the polytunnel. But what they do need is just a bit of a tidy. They need to be tied up again and have their lower leaves taken off. Despite them being much shorter plants, there's actually loads and loads of fruit on these. I'm really happy with how they're doing. Mum's just going to give them, just before I give them a feed, Mum's just been hoeing them, get rid of the weeds. The mulch that we put on this year has really helped suppress everything. We really haven't had too much of a problem with weeds, actually. But I mean, it does help that Mum sort of potters around with her hoe constantly, which just makes the most enormous amount of difference. So I'm just mixing up my generic tomato feed and giving them a water. This is a 10-gallon watering can. This is 10 tomato plants and I'm giving them 2 lots. This is our shed calendar. I find this is a really useful method of just keeping on top of feeding. Good morning. So these are the leeks that I planted out on one of the really early vlogs, and they're in the bed that the carrot cage is. So I've got 3 main varieties of leeks here. I've got Autumn Giant, I have Musselburgh, and the last 2 rows are Nipper. And Nipper are going to stay there because they are pencil leeks and they're pretty much ready for eating now. We have been eating them, the bigger of them, and they'll just stay open. We're going to eat them so fast that the allium leaf miner isn't going to have a chance really to get hold of them. Okay, so these are my 2 bunches. I'm going to plant them in this bed where I've already sown some red onions earlier in the year. The reason that I'm moving them into this bed is because we want a whole bed of alliums. We keep our alliums generally in sort of 1 or 2 beds for the year because they need to be covered all the time on our allotment. The allium leaf miner is an absolute fiend. And there's nothing worse than cutting into leeks and it just being absolutely riddled with those allium leaf miner grubs. Not nice. So previous years I have chopped the tops off these. This is how I transplant my leeks. I make a very deep hole with the dibber and I just drop them straight in. I don't even bother closing up the hole because when you water it, the water will seep through and slowly they will close up. The reason you plant them so deep is that it's the depth that gives you the nice thick white stalk that is sort of classic on a leek. If you want a really big white stalk that you would buy, say, in the supermarket, you have to earth them up to get them that deep, but I'm not doing that. I can't be asked. I'm quite happy with these. And I like to eat the green bits at the top anyway, so it's not a problem. But you can see how deep they are. That's a really low hole and just dumped straight in the bottom. Pretty unceremonious. Now just give these a really good water and that should be that. They'll slowly fill in the hole and they'll be perfect. So like I say, this is going to be covered with an Enviromesh cover. Okay, so this is the cover on now. It's a bit tricky to get the Enviromesh to go over these metal cages because they snag a lot, but it protects it for the most part. Well, week 11 is complete. First thing to say is a huge thank you to all of you and everybody who watches, and specifically everybody who's subscribed, because we got over 1,000 subscribers last week, which I'm pretty astounded about, really. So I'm sorry it's not a glass of wine or a gin and tonic, but it's a bit early in the morning for that, so I'll have to do cheers with a cup of tea. But cheers, and really honestly thank you very much. Yeah, so what have we done this week? Well, we had the summer solstice, obviously, which means that traditionally you stop picking asparagus on the summer solstice, which tends to work out about 6 weeks after it first appeared, sometimes 7. So we've stopped, which means I've got another 40-something weeks to wait for the next asparagus, which is, you know, hurts my heart, but it's all right. I've made masses of asparagus soup, so we've got a freezer full of that. So if the craving hits, I can turn to the freezer. Yeah, things are really starting to move along at the allotment now. It's looking lush and green. This week's weather's been amazing for it because obviously we've had a couple of really big downpours, and also it's been warm and sunny, so obviously everything just rockets up, particularly the weeds, but everything else does as well, so that's really, really lovely. But this week we've got no rain forecast and really hot. It's going to be about 32 on Wednesday and Thursday, so hotness o'clock basically. So there's going to be an awful lot of watering being done next week, which isn't that entertaining to watch, so I'll have to find something else to film. The tomatoes are coming on fantastically, which I'm just like basically giddy about. I'm so excited about getting the first lot of them. I mean, the kohlrabi is already up that I just sowed the other day. It's so quick. The beans haven't made an appearance yet, and unsurprisingly, nor have the garlic chives, but we'll see what happens there. We're eating, I don't know if you follow me on Instagram. If you do, you'll see that we've been eating a lot of produce at the moment. Potatoes, definitely, nipper leeks, the little skinny pencil leeks we've been eating, and more peas than you can shake a stick at. So lockdown is really coming to a bit of a close over these next couple of weeks. Things are reopening, and these are lockdown vlogs, but unfortunately I don't have a job to go back to. At least not for a bloody long time, so which is unfortunate for my financial situation, but it's good for the allotment, and I have found that I really enjoy doing these vlogs. Like I've said before, during the lockdown, when there was sort of no difference between days, it gave me some kind of structure, and that was really important because everything was turning into a bit of a molasses, to be honest. So like I say, I'm incredibly grateful that so many people are enjoying them. I'm basically going to continue doing these vlogs until either everybody gets bored of them or I find some employment. And in the current climate, I've got no idea when that's going to be, so we'll just hope for that, I think, really. So on that note, I'm going to say goodbye for another week, and despite lockdown coming to an end, I will see you again next Tuesday afternoon. I've said before, I'm always on Instagram. Come and find me, and in the meantime, I hope everybody's coping with coming out of lockdown. I mean, it was hard enough going into it, but when you haven't seen anybody for 3.5 months, suddenly being with people again can be slightly alarming in its own right, particularly for those of us who have what's the word, hermit tendencies, I think is probably the way to put it, which I certainly do. I'm going to go and spend the rest of the morning editing this week's video, and then I'm going to go up and have a beautiful ice cold glass of wine in the sunshine and enjoy the magnificent weather that we're going to be having over the next couple of days. I will see you next week. Bye.